Okay, welcome to Faces of Stone, the October edition. My name is Marc-Anthony Macon, and I am here with my co-hosts. First, she is an ice skating instructor, satanic marriage counselor, and the begrudging reincarnation of Dorothy Parker. That's Amanda Sisk.
Hello. Hello.
We also have the honorary Marx Brother legume enthusiast and the understudy for Carol Burnett's secretary, Noah Diamond.
Greetings, folks.
Welcome, everybody. This is the Return of the Jedi edition. So Return of the Jedi was what, 1983?
Yes.
So where were the two of you in 1983?
Well, in 1983, I was a 6-year-old child. I was living in Willington, Connecticut, and I was obsessed with Star Wars by this point, and it was, I think, the first of the Star Wars films that I saw in the theater on first release.
Sisk?
I was just trying to text my sister. I was either...
You were texting your sister in 1983? Jesus Christ.
She was way ahead of her time.
Because I think it was 1983, but the years, these 2 years somewhere in there, 82 and 83, are totally different. So okay. I think I was in Memphis. We had just moved there. I was a kid, but I had much more access to movies. But any movies we ever saw were in Memphis because where I lived before was a 6,000 person town in Arkansas where my dad was a farmer, or where we owned a farm. So it was in Memphis I went to an all girls school, and I don't know. So I was in one of those two places, and I would have seen it in Memphis in the movie theater, which I did. And it was great. And I thought it was 84, but
you thought it was 80? Maybe it was 84. Maybe it was like a.
No, it was May 25th, 1983. The U.S. release.
I gotta find out. I'm gonna get a text her and find out where the hell I lived and who I was at the time. But we can keep going.
Is it possible though that it was rerun in 84 where you were, and that's when you saw it?
I don't know. It just sticks out in my head as a.
Oh, that is possible. I mean, they all these movies hung around in theaters for a long time, and
yeah, I mean, before home video was a thing, sometimes movies would stay around for a while, or come back for a few weeks.
Absolutely.
I'm sorry.
So I do not have any specific memories of seeing. Well, I had some memories of the movie, of watching it, but the biggest memory I have connected to watching Return of the Jedi is my dad and I sitting down. Finding the best seats to find to watch the show, and then this little kid coming in and sitting right in front of where I was sitting, but he was so tiny that as soon as he sat down, his head disappeared. We couldn't see him anymore. And then, bit before the movie starts, this hulking woman with 2 giant things of popcorn comes and starts scooting into the same row and sits right down on top of the kid, who flails his arms and screams, and the lady jumps up, and she's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, honey," but then she falls back into him, and he screams again, and then she rolls over and gets into the other seat. There's popcorn everywhere, and he's gasping for air. My dad and I are trying not to laugh, despite the fact that we should have been more concerned about this kid, who turned out to be okay, but we thought it was hilarious.
You're laughing.
That's my major memory related to Return of the Jedi in the theater, is actually this kid almost getting suffocated by his mother's butt.
That's pretty amazing that that's a huge event, had this pretty huge event attached to it. You would tell that story about the mother falling on her kid, even if you hadn't been at Return of the Jedi.
If it hadn't been Return of the Jedi, yeah, any movie. It could have been a movie that could be I forget which movie it was, but this lady sat on her kid.
We're sitting in the mall. It's just...
and then I also remember that they, at the beginning of the movie, and this might have been standard practice in movies at the time, but they played this, there were Star Wars sound effects going on with music that I assume was the Star Wars score. And then on the screen, there were those kind of oil blob 70s colors. You know what I'm talking about? That was going on while there were Star Wars sound effects. I remember that from going to see it.
Before the movie started?
Yeah, before the movie started. And also, what I remember from the film itself was being very surprised about Leia being Luke's sister.
Yeah.
That's really something to think about, Albert.
I wish I could remember what I thought about that. And I mean, as with the I Am Your Father revelation in Empire. Those are two of the things I wish the most, that I could access my childhood feelings about them. I don't remember how I felt about that.
I do not remember, like we talked about last time, I don't remember the I'm Your Father revelation, or at least not seeing it in the theater.
I mean, I know that when I was 6, when this movie came out, you know, I had a sister, I still do, and we were very close. And I think I sort of, Luke and Leia as brother and sister, that was kind of fine for me. I mean, I liked the idea that they were, but I don't remember if it seemed surprising to me. I don't think I was sophisticated enough to have any kind of like, were they going to get together, or, you know, that part of it.
I don't think I was thinking about it in that way, but I was just surprised that she was his sister.
I have no idea. I don't remember.
And I just remember being surprised, but I don't really remember how I felt about it.
How do you feel about it now?
How do I feel about it now?
Yeah.
About Leia being, I mean, well, I have no strong feelings about it. I honestly don't.
It's never occurred to me to question these things, because as a child I received all of this as like gospel.
Of course,
But it is kind of it's interesting. It seems very clear that this was not always the plan.
Right.
And it also is, I don't know, I mean, I certainly did not feel this way when I was a child at the time, but now it's kind of like, in Empire we had this family revelation, so we've got to have one in Jedi too. And I read an interview with Mark Hamill where he talked about it as being, in his opinion, kind of a lame development. And he says, you know, you think the next thing that's going to happen is Boba Fett takes off his mask and everyone says, "It's Mom!"
Oh my God, if only. I would have been so happy if that happened.
If he took off his mask and it was Natalie Portman.
So happy, yeah. That could still happen. There could be another special edition where it turns out.
I don't know that Natalie Portman would agree to do anything, but they could use archived footage of her going.
God, we can have CGI Portman.
Yeah, it would. Yes, you could easily.
Okay, so really quickly, let's get this out of the way. I think that like every episode, I'm going to take on the persona of the gatekeeper. And I would just like to know, off the top of either of your heads, without Googling, how many Ewoks can you name?
One.
Wicket.
Mm-hmm.
Chief Chirpa.
That's 2.
I love this guy. There's one. There's one named like Lagoop or something like that. Is there one close?
No, there is no.
It's something like Lagoop, right? Maybe it's Loopy or Lanoop. Lanoop the Ewok, I'm pretty sure.
No, there's no Lanoop the Ewok.
And then there's Sammy the Ewok.
Well, of course, Sammy, yes.
Yes.
How many Ewoks can you name?
I can name many Ewoks, and I can demonstrate many Ewoks.
There
Let's
like,
have it.
Wicket W. Warwick. The aforementioned Chief Chirpa.
Chief Chirpa. I had that guy.
Tebow.
Oh, Stripes. I used to call that guy Stripes. Hey, Stripes.
His name was not Stripes.
What's his real name? Tebow? Like the football player?
Paplu.
Oh, yeah, Papaloo. Yes, that's what I meant when I said Lagoop.
Warrock. Logray.
Also Stripes.
I am missing Logray's headpiece, and I cannot convey to you how distraught this makes me.
Without the headpieces, their look is actually quite less impactful.
Rumba, not to be confused with Rumba or Roomba.
I was confusing it with Rhombus.
And Lomat.
That could come out with legume.
All right, that's enough of the gatekeeper.
I like the gatekeeper. I like him a lot.
That was wonderful.
He was going to be one of my bingos, though it wasn't. You know, of course, it wasn't this robust, and so I'm glad I didn't make it because that was much better than anything I could have thought of.
So let's talk about Ewoks, because they're a contentious issue. It seems people either love, hate, or are apathetic to Ewoks, which, I mean, you could probably say about chocolate chip cookies, too.
There were a lot of them. I mean, like, one thing, and I don't mean too many, I'm not making a judgment at all. I'm just saying that when we watched the credits, we realized, like, geez Louise, there's so
You mean like a lot of actors? That?
Yes!
Yeah.
They employed a lot of people.
Here's a stupid little aside, but, you know, in the drought of early Star Wars material, there was a zine, an underground zine called Star Wars Generation, where people that were inspired by or influenced by Star Wars would just kind of like write some sort of Star Wars related memory or idea. And apparently they got a lot of submissions of people who were talking about their quest to have sex with people that played Ewoks. This was a major.
Huh.
I don't understand.
Like they'd make a list and
yeah, they would be like,
go out into the world,
there's
and
Warwick Davis, and there's Billy Barty, and there's, you know, we are gonna just make sure I was gonna go, just like
Billy Barty was Billy Barty one of the
like
Ewoks?
David Bowie and all of the rock stars. These people wanted to get with all the Ewoks.
Are you serious about Billy Barty?
Wasn't Billy Barty an Ewok?
Was he? He may well have been. That would be
very
interesting.
Surprised if Billy Barty wasn't an Ewok.
Yeah, it does make sense, but I just I've never I didn't know. That's really interesting. Anyway, that's a sidebar. I mean, it doesn't surprise me that some people found Ewoks to be sexually something.
Sexually?
Sure. I mean, there's furries and people who like to.
No, I didn't find them. Oh, you're going off with something else. Yes, go ahead. I thought you were just bringing up sex for no reason, but Marc-Anthony was just talking about that.
Yeah, which...
I do not see Return of the Jedi in the Billy Barty filmography.
Oh, okay then.
Interesting, though. Yes, a very legendary figure of Hollywood. A small man who loomed very large, and we all love him.
Yes, I'm sorry.
He was in everything.
Moving around in your tribute.
I think the first thing I saw him in was Time Bandits.
Time Bandits.
Mm-hmm. Which is just, you know, delightfully weird, especially when you're 8 years old.
Well, all right.
But
I'm done.
That's a tangent there.
That is a tangent. Ewoks.
So, but back to Ewoks. I mean, there are a lot of people who thought Ewoks were way too cute. They didn't want that being in their serious space adventure.
Yeah, they kind of got the Jar Jar treatment.
I really like them.
No, Jar Jar, I think we watched something. Jar Jar exists because of them, even if they're not bad, that bad. Jar Jar exists because of the Ewoks. They helped.
And we can't thank them enough.
So
of course, like they were originally, this role was supposed to be played by the Wookiees. I think in the first kind of imaginings of where the future of the Star Wars story might go, Lucas was thinking, oh, we'll go to the Wookiee planet. Okay.
I forgot to explain that I play bingo, buzzword bingo, and if I have these pieces of paper around me that say things that these boys might say, and if they do say it or something very close to it, I ring the bell and we have a bingo. So that was a bingo from Marc-Anthony.
From what I understand, in the original, or at least in an early draft of A New Hope, there was going to be a battle on a Wookiee planet where the primitive Wookiees would overcome the high-tech empire, and that was going to be the point made. But that got dropped from the first movie, and Lucas always wanted to return to it, but by that time, having spent like 3 movies showing Chewbacca to be so technically adept that he can pilot and fix a spaceship, the decision was made that, you know, you had to come up with a new primitive culture because obviously the Wookiees weren't that primitive.
Right, exactly. Well, we'd seen them to really just be kind of vaguely consumeristic in the Hollywood special. Indeed,
yes, that's absolutely right.
They're kind of, you know, in QVC hell development is where they see.
Yeah.
So I do want also with the Ewoks. So have you ever seen David Lynch talk about being offered to direct Return of the Jedi?
Yeah. He didn't want to do it.
And, you know, like he's like, I got this call from George Lucas saying, I'd like you to look at these things. Come up to the ranch. And I said, I know I don't want to do this thing, but I can't just say no outright. So I get there, and he takes me upstairs, and he's showing me these things, these Ewok things, and I start to get this kind of headache thing that's not in my head, but's kind of around it. And then I'm trying to be polite, and I'm like, George, I just don't think this is the thing for me. And he's saying, oh, it's great, David, it's great. And I left, and I had the horrible headache for another 2 hours until I called and said, thank you, but no, and then it went away. That's completely paraphrased. I don't think he said that exactly.
It's something like that, though. He talked about getting a headache and not liking the idea of the Ewoks. But what if he had? I mean, well, what if David Lynch had directed Return of the Jedi?
I think that's certainly something worth talking about. More worth talking about is, why doesn't he tomorrow direct Return of the Jedi? You know, like, it's not going to hurt the original Return of the Jedi at all. Just like, here, take the original script, David. You make exactly the movie you would like to make with that script with no studio constraints. I would love to see the movie he makes.
Do you want to give David Lynch the job of tying up a whole bunch of loose ends satisfactorily for all of them?
Yes!
Well, I mean, it's really interesting, though. I mean, I think when we consider this question, we're always assuming that he would have turned, you know, Return of the Jedi into a David Lynch movie. But of course, he wouldn't have done that.
He wouldn't have been able.
He wouldn't have been able to do that. He wasn't going to write it. It would have, but you know, at this point too, David Lynch had made Eraserhead, idiosyncratic sort of statement of purpose for the rest of his artistic output. But then The Elephant Man, you know, he was doing the Hollywood thing, and his next thing was Dune. I mean, he turned down Jedi and then made Dune. So he was kind of
his only regret.
He was not at that point, you know, marketing himself as an avant-garde auteur. Return of the Jedi is very much the kind of thing he might have done. I think maybe if he hadn't been more interested in Dune, he may well have done it at this point, at this point in his career. And who knows? We know that Richard Marquand, who did direct Return of the Jedi, was basically a Lucas puppet, you know.
Well, and I mean, his name does sound like, you know, a character Shakespeare left on the cutting room floor.
He was, from all accounts, he was, you know, a very talented craftsman. He knew how to direct a movie, but he was so in awe of Lucas and of being part of this franchise. He basically, you know, was almost the second director on the set. I have a little cold, everybody. I'm just saying so by way of apologizing for my occasional sneezes or nose blows. I hope it doesn't distract anyone.
We'll easily endure your sneezes and nose blows, Noah.
Thank you.
So
I think you're a little distracting.
Since we've been watching these in the order that they take place, in what way do you think watching it in that order has affected your viewing of Return of the Jedi?
It really made me, no lie, decide today if I ever showed it to somebody, I would definitely show them the original trilogy first, and then show them the prequels. Yes, and you know, it's always been a thought. Do you say just stick with these three movies? It's just, you got to get through it. It's like class, but no, they're so much better. I don't know. I can't explain it. It made me realize how good this trilogy is. And I knew that. It's not like I didn't know it before, but it's just so good. However, things like, I think you're constantly looking for the mess ups. I think that's what you see the most rather than the connection. So you're like, Obi-Wan taught you well and all this stuff. And it's kind of like, yeah, but Yoda was in the middle there and that's never talked about. And it's just, you see the mistakes, the things they don't tie up, more than you see what they do.
No,
I was nothing but delighted with this movie when I first encountered it, and you know, for my whole childhood, from that point on, it never occurred to me that Return of the Jedi was in any sense a weaker entry in this series. I just thought all three of them were perfect and unbelievable and beautiful. And I had no problem with the Ewoks then, and I don't now. But one difference, I don't think it has as much to do with viewing them in episodic order as just viewing them as an adult. But I now see what people are talking about as far as, you know, it's sort of, by definition, it's a little bit less inspired than Star Wars and Empire. It's not weak in the sense of being a bad movie or anything, but, you know, A New Hope is revolutionary and changed the world and is our introduction to all of this. Empire astonishingly sort of managed to top it and deepen everything and everything we discussed in our last episode that makes Empire special. And Return of the Jedi is a very competent, craftsman-like tying up of the loose ends and completion of the story. I don't know if it sort of breaks new ground the way Empire seemed to.
Yeah, well, I mean, it is in a lot of ways just kind of a rehash of A New Hope.
Can we? Well, let's talk about the second Death Star in the room.
Yeah.
I mean.
Yeah, another Death Star.
With another fatal flaw in the same place. It's just one ship can't shoot it in this impossible way. Now
it's not quite the same thing.
Fatal flaw seemed a lot more out in the open too. You know, I mean, it seemed we're gonna have this big cavernous inside with something that's ripe for shooting at.
But isn't it that the fatal flaw though is just that it's under construction and it's the shield generator on the moon of Endor that is making it impenetrable.
But it's
so getting the shield. I mean, once you get the shield down, this thing is half completed. You can fly right into it and hit the main reactor.
Yes,
so I mean,
okay, yes,
fair enough. Yeah,
we don't need a Galen Erso flaw built into this one. I think we're gonna hear the little bell ring.
I don't know if this is how you spell it.
Galen Ersosp.
Ersosp.
I think it's ERSO.
Sorry, that just derails everything with too much fun.
You're adorable in that hat.
Thanks.
I think we talked yesterday, or not yesterday, last episode about playing with the toys, Hoth toys in the snow.
Yeah.
So as a forest kid, I really appreciated all the Endor toys too.
Absolutely.
Did you play with like Luke and stuff on Tatooine, in the sand on the beach?
Well, I didn't have beaches, so I didn't get to do any Tatooine shit.
I had a sandbox. I had a Tatooine was my sandbox.
Yeah. I think a neighbor had a sandbox, so we did Tatooine there. We would fly over there. Yeah.
What the fuck is a sandbox? Except a box of disease.
It's all we had, sis.
Well, I know. Like, we had railroad ties around ours. It's hardcore. But, like, what the fuck? Okay, anyway, we don't have to talk about this now, but at some point we have to do an exploration of sandboxes because do people have them anymore?
Yeah, okay, so I went looking at houses this week, and there was one where they had, like, the best way I can describe it is, like, a professional sandbox designed by an architect. Like, it was this huge thing, and then there was, like, a castle in it that had been, abandoned, and I think taken over by a gopher. It was pretty cool.
Wow.
But people, yes, at least some eccentric people still have sandboxes.
I actually, when I was a little kid in the thick of my Star Wars mania, I had both a sandbox and in our backyard, there was a kind of sand pit, like a little sandy area in the grass that I used. That was my Sarlacc.
The place where your grass won't grow.
Okay. Yeah, we lived in the woods until I was 8 years old, and the backyard was a great Star Wars environment because we had the sandy pit for the Sarlacc, sandbox for the rest of Tatooine, the woods for Endor, the snow for Hoth. Other than that, I can't say much about the place, but it was really good for that.
So. Apparently, I hadn't noticed this before, but I guess in the most recent special edition, a Dug has been added to Jabba's palace.
A Dug?
A Dug. So Sebulba from episode 1 was a Dug.
Oh, I didn't catch that.
An especially dangerous Dug named Sebulba.
Right.
So that, I guess, has been added to Jabba's palace. I hadn't noticed it before this viewing.
Oh, me neither. There are Gungans in the finale now. There's a celebration on Naboo and Coruscant and Tatooine, and so there are. I think a
So
Gungan.
how do you guys feel about that? Those changes in the special edition of this one?
Some of them are fine. A lot of them are fine. I don't mind like taking Sebastian Shaw's eyebrows off to make him look more like he got burned. You know, that's whatever. The size snoodles.
They take eyebrows off of everyone in space. No eyebrows in space. Remove them all.
If you collect all those eyebrows, you could make a few more Ewoks.
Yes, you could. Or just like a really big Christmas tree of eyebrows.
Some of the changes that I'm not quite as down with are the new size noodles and Max Rebo band number is just, I don't mind that they put a new number in there and made the characters a little more digital, but it's one of those times when it just takes you out of the movie because it's so different from everything else.
I really disagree. It's one of my favorite editions in all.
Oh, is it?
Because I always did like the size noodles and the Rebo band as a concept,
Me too.
but was kind of bored with what they did in the actual movie. And so having that be more involved in kind of being like this random show-stopping number at the beginning of a sci-fi adventure kind of amuses me. So I'll take it.
I just wish it had been animated in a way that made these characters look like they might have been in the same world as all the other characters in Jabba's palace.
There's still time for that.
Yeah. Well, if it was a standalone video, I think I would have enjoyed it.
If they keep making it, they're going to eventually make it look more seamless, that's fine. I think this is more entertaining than what used to be there.
That's undoubtedly true. Also, similarly, the music at the end. They changed the Ewoks.
I miss Yub Nub for very nostalgic reasons, but it was stupid. But
I think in both cases, this is in both cases it's sort of diegetic Ewok celebration music that ends because they're celebrating. It makes sense. But don't you think ending this epic trilogy with more of a triumphant John Williams symphonic theme would have been more inspiring? I think in both cases it throws away the ending a little bit to put Ewok music behind it.
I don't know. I'm gonna side with the Ewoks.
You always take their side.
It's how the saga began with the Gungans being the kind of underdogs taking on the invading force, and then it ends with the underdogs feeding that empire. Let them play their own goddamn music.
I have no objection to the story beat, but just the final curtain call at the end with all our heroes smiling into the camera. We've been through so much with them, and so much of it has been punctuated by maybe one of the greatest scores in cinematic history. But for the final tableau, we don't get that. We get this kind of tribal pan flute. It's just
I'm sorry, I dig it. I think you get more of your horns in the rest of the credits. Just hang on a couple of minutes.
Yeah, it does start with the credits, and that's when you get like, this is a saga, like you get all that.
It was important. People were dying. You should really care.
The music in the celebration it's the indigenous people's music.
Yeah.
Which you should honor, especially today.
Just for political reasons alone, I have to approve.
The day before Indigenous Peoples Day.
You know what? You guys are e-woke.
Which is tomorrow. Indigenous peoples, persons.
Oh, right. Yes.
Anyway, sorry.
In lieu of Columbus
in
genocide
high school,
day.
I used a pretense of fluency in the Ewok language to get in horrible trouble. Because my friends and I, there was this math teacher who was just disgusting and we hated. And so we made a group called Pad Taco, Painfully Agonizing Death to the Asshole Called This Guy Organization. And when it got out what that meant and all the badges we were wearing, what they meant, I was confronted and I said, oh, it's the Ewok word for the beginning of summer, Gundachi Pad Taco. That's how it's just this stupid nerd thing. And that saved us trouble from that. So. there's a random piece of knowledge about
That
So
might have
that's-
helped me a lot.
how you.
I just said, no, I'm going down that
constructed
path to
languages.
study, not to smoke. But anyway,
I
that
have
was
no
well
respect.
after I saw this movie.
Yes. So the Mon Calamari ships are pretty, eh?
Yeah, those are nice.
I like them.
They're so bubbly.
They are. They're quite perky in their personalities. And again, I think I mentioned this in an earlier episode, but Admiral Akbar is important to me. I learned a lesson from Admiral Akbar. I thought when I found this figure that he was an evil nurse, maybe.
Yeah.
That was just kind of my guess. Is this looks like
Or
he's in the
dentist.
hospital and you shouldn't trust squid face nurse.
Or he's a dentist.
He'll poison you. And then it turns out that he was a hero that was kind of dorky, and that's cute.
I like Admiral Akbar. I've always had a good feeling about that guy.
Yeah, he's got a nice cadence in his speech.
He never leads people in the right direction. It's like they survive in spite of what he tells them to do. That's my read of the situation.
I think he deserved more of a hero's death in The Last Jedi.
That's true. He didn't really get a send off at all.
Yeah, we hear that he perished in the battle.
Right.
Well, I mean, they only had so much recycled footage of him. So after he passed, they couldn't really,
And I mean,
Right.
he hadn't looked like himself.
It was amazing, that scene they put together with him and Carrie Fisher. I mean,
So something I'd never thought about before, watching the scene with Carrie Fisher and Mark Hamill on Endor, where he's telling her that she's his sister. First of all, she has some of her most melodramatic acting in that scene
Yes.
that I've ever seen her do in anything.
but it's not reacting to what you think she should be reacting to. Like, you're my sister, and there's never this moment of, oh my God, Vader's my father.
Right, yeah.
Well, there's two scenes like that. He talks to her before he leaves to confront Vader,
Mm-hmm.
and he hasn't. Oh no, he does tell her. That's when he tells her.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right? And then
Yeah, I think that's right. And she's like, if you can feel his presence, then leave this place. It's really a little out there, Carrie.
yeah, I
He was on a
regret.
lot of drugs at the time,
It's true. I assume.
and apparently they weren't downers.
Right.
But I mean, like, think of all the trauma these people had to experience at the end of this trilogy. Like,
Yeah.
does everything calm down? It seems like it might. And again, somehow all the rebels are oppressed again. It's just ridiculous. Like, all these people are celebrating, but the Rebel Alliance is like 25 people. It's just,
Right, yeah.
how does that work? Anyway, so
I
they
also realized that, sorry, go ahead.
they all get squashed down, and then you think, like, they must have to sit around and just really process a lot of shit. There must be some really good therapists with these people. Like, in like,
I'm sure there's a planet of therapists that
in a
has
year, you fly in and out, and it's just, what a weird planet. I would not want to live there.
the Jungoese or something.
Can you imagine, like, owning a restaurant there? Oh.
But I've realized that, being adopted must have been something that Luke and Leia bonded over as friends. They must have talked about it, because this conversation is like, hey, remember your mother? Your real mother? They must have talked about this at least tangentially.
Last night or recently when we were watching it, Amanda says, hey, doing Luke's voice, she says, hey, Leia, when's your birthday? Wouldn't that have come up at some way? Oh, no kidding. You too? Wow, that's a coincidence. Now,
How would you know what your birthday is when you're dealing with multiple star systems? Anyway.
Yeah, that's true. That we don't
But
know.
yeah, but this is an area where it seems that either Leia has a tremendously good memory, or we've got a inaccuracy here.
A year to Leia is very different than a year to us.
Yes.
Well,
So-
isn't it possible that she's remembering her adopted mother?
Could be. And
Could
we
be.
don't know if her
Yes,
adopted mother died very
mother
early.
died when she was young.
Mrs. Smits?
Mrs. Smith.
With the Smiths.
Luke, I when I was a little kid, I remember like when Luke makes his entrance in this movie and he's all in black and he's very dark. And like, I remember thinking like, is Luke evil in this one? And kind of hanging on to that feeling even after I knew he wasn't. Like, it's a year after Empire Strikes Back. But this is the year, I guess, when Luke really learns how to be a Jedi. Because at the end of Empire, he's kind of still just discovering his powers. And here he's this very commanding and also this kind of brooding figure.
He's like the best Jedi ever.
Well, he does prove correct. He sort of triumphs over.
Excuse me, but the best Jedi ever was certainly Ahsoka Tano.
Very funny.
Oh, and Walter, that was one of the Ewoks. Walter,
yeah.
But Walter was not the best Jedi ever.
Oh, no.
No. Walter was a terrible, terrible Jedi and an even worse flautist.
Those are the two things he wanted
Damn it,
to
Walter,
be,
just give up.
He never wanted to be anything else but a flautist Jedi.
And yet, his real skill, he could paint a 2-bedroom apartment in 3 hours.
Didn't even use tape.
So, like, a question I have that is just, this is just a stupid, means nothing question, but I just have always wondered why, when Han and the troops are trying to get into the bunker on Endor.
It's a ridiculous scene. I don't even know what you're about to ask.
There's one guy there, and we're going to tap him on the shoulder and lead him around the side of the building so we can all be there and be like, surprise, weaponry. Why not just take all 8 of those guys with guns and just go up to the guy and be like, put your hands up now? Why?
Go back a little bit.
Okay, yes.
1 Ewok steals 1 speeder.
Mm-hmm.
3 stormtroopers decide we must go after
3 out of 4.
1 Ewok. Oh,
3 out of 4 stormtroopers follow Paplu on this speeder bike.
And then one of them stays behind. And then, you do the shoulder tap thing, which is ridiculous.
Yeah,
but I do love Harrison.
I don't know. Is this just how they entertain themselves when they're
on? A wall
on
that's like this wide, like this, is going to cover you from anything out there. You're like, oh, just lean against this wall, Leia.
I do love Harrison Ford's gesture, though, when he comes around the side of the bunker and he's like,
yeah,
it's great.
Very, sitcom dad.
Yeah, right.
Francis.
But I mean, also, I feel like, I was trying to think as I was watching it, what is this movie about? What is it actually about? And I think that one of the things it's definitely about that's still important today is that if you can get, in one interaction session past a language barrier, you can steal an all-terrain armor transport together.
Yet. Okay, wait, is this movie, does it take place before or after this?
Does what?
The Ewok movie. The 2 Ewok movie.
The Ewok Adventure with Sindel and...
Yes, the blonde girl.
After this, I think.
All right, so they learned English. Mm-hmm. Maybe they learned it from that blonde girl.
Mm-hmm.
How long was she on that place?
Were
there a lot of Ewok, like, McDonald's tie-ins and stuff?
There were glasses. I remember some drinking glasses that had pictures on them, and I think one of them was an Ewok glass.
Were there
really? There was. I have an Ewok. Here I've got the Sarlacc glass.
Oh yeah, that's. Oh wow, Burger King. Yeah, I remember that.
I have all of these. I've got a ton of these things.
Do you really? That's amazing.
How do you not break them?
I just take care of them.
Thank you to put on that.
And then when I use them to serve people here, they get terrified, like they've got the Queen's jewels.
I wouldn't touch them.
That's you, Marc-Anthony. Amanda has broken 3 glasses in our kitchen since we started.
Noah does not bring me anything but plastic glasses with lids now.
Amanda gets sippy cups.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, with this,
you're not to be trusted.
I am not.
And she takes the sippy cup and smashes a glass with it.
This is also that bit is also where Rebel Scum gained its
Rebel
first.
Scum.
Rebel scum.
Yes.
And a lot of people self-identify as Rebel scum now. I think it was also in Rogue One. Was Rebel scum used in Rogue One?
I think. Oh, I thought it was Last Jedi. Maybe it was Rogue One. Yeah, one of the recent films has appropriated that phrase.
Yeah, it's taking it back.
Right. Yes, that's right. We can call each other Rebel scum.
I'm owning Rebel scum.
Seriously though, why are there so many people against the Empire and so few people in the Alliance present? And why aren't they if they have all these transmissions and spaceships, why aren't they coordinating all over the galaxy to have these coordinated attacks? And why is it like just they have to find each other in these random places and this tiny fleet every time? But then at the end, there's a huge celebration. Everybody's like, thanks, guys. Here's your medal.
Well, I mean,
where's everybody?
That's the real world, though. You know, like all the French joined the resistance after the war.
So we're the French? Wait, who's...
I don't know. I'm just saying that the rest of the galaxy is exactly like, whew, that's terrible. I hope somebody takes care of that.
Kind of like what we're all doing right now.
Exactly what all of us
are doing right now. Yes.
One thing I love in the Endor part of the movie is 3PO telling the story to all the Ewoks.
It's so great.
That's lovely, and that gets more and more resonant as Star Wars continues to acquire mythic gravity.
And, you know, it's very meta. It's just like, yes, we're telling you this overwrought story that has, you know, big high points and low points. And speaking of which, before I forget, because I keep forgetting to bring this up in an episode, did you guys have any thoughts about red-eyed C-3PO in the trailer?
Oh, yeah. He had a red arm in The Force Awakens.
What could it mean?
I don't remember what you're talking about.
There's just a scene in the new trailer where 3PO sits up and has his eyes turned.
Okay, well, you guys keep talking.
Yeah, I don't know. I suspect it's one of those things that, like, we see it in the trailer and it's different from what we're used to. So we think, ooh, what's that about? But it probably has some very prosaic explanation in the film. Like he's in infrared mode so he can see something specific or something like that. You know, in that part we were just talking about where 3PO tells the story to the Ewoks, he plays sound effects, which he never does that at any other time, does he?
Not that I can think of, no.
Like he never says, Princess Leia was just saying, and then says it in her voice.
Yes. I would imagine that was something that perhaps some protocol droids did, and it was that this is not comfortable for anyone. So you're just going to repeat things in your voice from now on.
Isn't there something in The Last Jedi with BB-8? It's weird that you recorded that. What am I thinking of?
I do know that the BB-8 is the one in The Last Jedi who says, I have a bad feeling about this.
Yes, I've heard that, but I've never caught it.
I guess it's in the, you have to be reading the subtitles.
And there's something, is it like Poe Dameron says
it's like
weird
only
that you
positive things, buddy, something like that. I really, with the space battle, I feel like some of my favorite John Williams stuff from this time. It's a really rousing battle score.
The Death Star battle and Jedi.
It's fun.
Yeah, I actually think, and these are not my favorite parts of these movies, but I think this Death Star battle is actually more pleasurable on repeated viewings than the episode 4.
Yeah, I think it's one of the more repeatedly tolerable ones.
Yeah, it's just very beautifully presented.
And I think part of that is like the inside of Admiral Akbar's ship is just very pleasant to look at. It's you know, similar to Cloud City in The Empire Strikes Back. It's just aesthetically pleasing. It's nice to look at that white intricacy.
Yeah, and that long trench run in episode 4, it's kind of, it wears on you. It's like the pod race in episode 1. You know, when it's first few times, it's exciting, but then it gets to be like,
I mean, you know, speak for yourself. I could watch the pod race every single morning, and it might invigorate me for the day.
Don't you find it just long, even if it's exciting? I just find that pod race, it's like, it feels like it's like a half hour. It just goes on and on.
Right.
It is. I took an accounting of the time of it. It's in my notebook, and it's just like there are like 45 seconds between laps, and it's the two guys.
Well, I mean, you know, like if you've ever had to sit through a NASCAR race, you can relate to that just going on and on.
That trailer is really. It was hard to stop after I saw C-3PO's red eyes, which I.
Oh, you just watched the trailer?
Oh, yeah.
I just wanted to see his eyes. But it's so hard to stop watching it.
So there are some people saying that this is his kill mode that's been, you know, Anakin programmed into him decades ago, and now it's coming.
Why? A protocol? You're going to put that in a protocol droid?
Well, now there is a protocol droid in the comics named 000, who is one of Vader's underlings droid that is just a sadistic killer droid that looks like C-3PO but has red eyes and loves murdering.
And feelings. And has feelings.
Yeah,
Killer feelings.
Sure.
Well, I guess 3PO is scared all the time, so.
And other people are saying that instead of having his memory wiped, 3PO's memories were, you know, stored in some little secret compartment, and now they've been woken up, and now he remembers everything that's happened.
Oh, that would be interesting.
Since he was built, you know, on Tatooine to help a slave woman wash dishes.
What's happening?
I don't know. We've lost Noah.
And I was like, not even. It was just you. You were all alone.
Hello?
I'm so sorry.
I'm mad as hell and I can't take it anymore.
Well, put on your little hat and tell me some facts.
Okay. The Millennium Falcon is a Y-13 Corellian Corvette, but it has been modified. It's not a standard Corellian. I'm sorry, it is not a Corellian Corvette. That was my mistake. It's a light freighter. A Corvette is something more akin to a blockade runner.
I asked him to give me some facts.
That was nice. I'm sorry to have missed it.
So, yeah, we were talking about what? Return of the what movie is that?
Let's talk about Ian McDiarmid.
Yeah.
Possibly the most homoerotic performance of his career.
I have felt him.
No, you think there's something more homoerotic?
When Anakin kneels down and says, "You're my master," and he's like, "Good."
Okay, well that moment, but I mean here he's like, "You want this phallic symbol? You want this?" Like it's very.
He likes flirting with little Skywalkers.
How about when Vader says, "I have felt him,"
right,
and Palpatine says, "Strange that I have not. I've felt everyone around here."
The guy behind us is like throwing shit again. I swear to God, he hates this. Back there throwing shit. Anyway, I keep shutting down the conversation.
Ian McDiarmid, though, it's kind of miraculous, isn't it, that he was cast in this role, and then he was age appropriate when the prequels came along.
Yeah. And I mean, he really is one of the highlights of this movie. He's tons of fun.
He's great scenery-chewing villain.
And not like a very well-designed villain visually compared to a lot of Star Wars villains. He's just a cackling guy in a hood. He should be boring and a disappointment, but he's a lot of fun.
Before the hood and the cloak, though, he wore a lot of puffy sleeves, and that was...
He was very
hot.
Yes. He was... quite the fop of Coruscant.
I don't remember exactly good, but I can think that they would have done some sort of Star Wars fashion line or something, and they had big puffy sleeves, and they were all on Project Runway.
I would like to see Palps prancing up and down the catwalk. Ooh.
And this line is based on Palpatine.
I must be frank, Your Majesty.
Well, the models are wearing yellow contact lenses.
The hem makes you look better. But did you know that initially he had like a big bulbous tumor-like thing on the side of his face?
No.
That in post-production was just deemed it didn't look good. It either looked fake or too repulsive or whatever. So initially that was just kind of blobbed over with some kind of ink, and then for subsequent prints was edited out with computers.
He was supposed to have a little head on his real head?
It was like a big blob.
Like a goiter?
Yeah, but a temple goiter.
Like a
No, I did not know that.
I would assume there are some pictures of it out there somewhere.
I don't understand what it is, though. It's like a boil or something?
I did not become intimately acquainted with the thing on Palpatine's head, Amanda, because I never saw it. It was removed before I was ever able to.
Okay.
Which really let me make that choice, Lucas. Let me decide if I want to see a bulbous, possibly pus-filled thing on the side of my Emperor.
You know George Lucas. He's everybody's mother. He's going to be like, oh, you have to have that lanced. The duel between Luke and Vader and the whole scene with the extended sequence that we keep going back to with the Emperor and Vader and Luke, that's good stuff. It's one of the sequences that can be said to really be the heart of this whole story, and it's excellent. I think it's some of Mark Hamill's best dramatic moments are in that sequence, and you also really do feel the conflict in Vader behind that mask, like there. And this is also a scene that is actually very enriched by having seen the prequels, because it's such a rhyme with this. Vader's been in this situation before, trying to choose between Palpatine and Mace Windu, and he made the wrong decision then. He makes the right decision now. It's great. This is a very good, powerful scene.
Isn't it true that in the original suit, he couldn't turn his head? So he turned his whole body, which is very interesting when you watch it and the emotion that comes through.
No, I didn't know.
He seems, maybe he could, but he turns, like when he does turn a lot, he always turns his body. And I thought that was like, you can't see his face and he's turning his whole body, but you still know what's going on with him. And I thought that's very good movement, David Prowse. Very good. Let's give you some props. Even though when they take the mask off, it's still not you. I mean, he must be, he's like Pete Best. He must just go to like Star Wars cons and talk about how bitter he is.
That's what he does. That's what he did, from my understanding. That's
what Pete Best did.
I mean, if that's what you got, that's what you got. Is bitterness about it not being your face under the mask of evil.
What was his name? Shaw?
David Prowse?
No.
Sebastian Shaw.
Mm-hmm.
How do we feel about no, I know that you were talking about this a lot, like, he repents at the end. He repents 30 seconds before he dies, but he's still able to show up as a Force ghost. Is he really forgiven? Has he done enough to wipe clear the karma? Say.
I know I said that in our last show, I think. How convincing is the redemption of Anakin Skywalker, because he is responsible for so much misery. But then after that, I did think later, well, he does kill Palpatine. That is a pretty big contribution to the noble cause.
But then is Star Wars saying that if you do one really good and helpful thing, that invalidates a lot of horrible evil things you did? Because Bill Gates,
Charlemagne,
a lot of people that did something that really helped a lot of people, and also did some horrible stuff too.
Yeah. I think both things are true. I mean, I still kind of feel the way what I expressed last week, that, it seems that the Star Wars machine wants us to feel sort of unqualified relief at the redemption of Darth Vader, and wants us to feel that the arc of this whole story is he turns out to be good after all. And I guess that is borne out by his behavior at the very end of the story. But it is kind of hard to see that as, really offsetting or atoning for the incredible number of people he's killed and hurt.
Yeah. He should at least have to plant 8 younglings.
It makes me, I mean, he just turned that around pretty fast. Even if he starts when he meets Luke, that's, 2 years? Like, he he's been living on pure evil since before he really became Darth Vader.
He turned evil kind of on a dime too. I mean, it was like he was a little bit mad here and there, and then all of a sudden he was like, all right, yeah, I'll go kill children, just save my life.
And he makes that offer to Luke. I mean, he tells Luke, but only by joining the dark side can you save your friends. It's the exact same gambit that Palpatine offered to Anakin. That only through the dark side can you hang on to the things you're attached to. And he does seem to be more conflicted than we might have imagined. When Luke when Luke first surrenders to Vader and they're walking down that hallway on Endor, and Luke is saying, like, there's good in you, I have felt it, turn away from your anger and all that. And Vader kind of looks right at him and says, nah, it's too late for me. I am a Republican and I will always be a Republican. But it's like Vader has thought about this. This is not the first time in 20 years that he's considered whether he should be evil or not.
I think probably
I kind of got the feeling that when he said it's too late for me, he was like, listen, I can't really do anything, but I'm going to take you up to the Emperor and you kill his ass. Like, that was kind of what I thought he was trying to set up there.
I think that he's probably felt this, and the Emperor has probably felt him feeling this, and as in an abusive relationship, like, he just keeps telling him, no, you're worthless, you are evil, you can't possibly be good, there is no good left in you.
Do you think Palpatine means it when he tells Luke to kill Vader and take Vader's place?
Yeah.
And do you think that is like news to Vader? Like, does Vader turn partly because, oh shit, the Emperor now is telling Luke to kill me? I mean, wait a minute, I thought I was your guy.
I don't think that I think we're meant to not think it has anything to do with it because I don't know. Well, because at the end he kills the Emperor, but he doesn't do it so that he and Luke can rule together, which is what would have been his next logical step if that had been his motivation, I think. But it was, I'm going to kill the Emperor because he's trying to kill my son. Can I ask why he hung on to the Emperor for so long when the Emperor was shooting lightning so that he died? Like, couldn't he have just tossed him with his mind or something?
Quick toss, yeah. He froze.
Well, he's in pretty rough shape at that point. He's been defeated in this duel by Luke. He's had one of his machine hands cut off. Maybe he's not in full command of his powers. Although, if we're going to open that can of worms, why not use the Force in some of these situations? That is all throughout at this point, now that Luke is a powerful Jedi, and we can't make the argument that he doesn't know enough about the Force, it is a little strange that, like, he can use his Force powers to lift 3PO up in that chair and convince the Ewoks he's a god, but he can't use his Force powers to untie Han from the steak when he's being cooked for dinner.
And for that matter, why is the Emperor getting thrown down a shaft? I mean, we've seen him jump around all over the Senate with Yoda.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, apparently Palpatine is going to return in the next...
In some shape or form, yeah.
So,
Return of Palpatine.
I've been doing a lot of reading about the contingency. Operation Cinder, all these Palpatine plans. He couldn't foresee at the end of, what would happen with the Death Star, and so he had all these contingency plans, apparently. One of which will be revealed to us in some kind of exposition-heavy scene in Skywalker.
I absolutely think that's going to happen because, like I've always said, it's like the long con, and you have to choose your own adventure routes. If you're going to do the long con, you got to be flexible.
Exactly.
Because if things don't go your way, you have to figure out. He's like water. The Emperor's like Zen. Actually, he's just evil Zen. He just
what if we get to the end and it's really just like you're supposed to side with Palpatine the whole time? You're like, yeah, that dude knew what to do. Look at all the rest of those crazy people. He
didn't, fight against this one moment and therefore fight against the universe. He just was the universe. He's like...
You like Palpatine a little too much, Amanda Sisk.
I think I meditate to a shrine.
Of Palpatine?
Of Palpatine.
So was there anything you noticed watching it this time that you hadn't noticed before?
I don't know if this counts as that exactly, but the way Return of the Jedi reaches back into the prequels, and also ahead into the sequels, like watching Luke burn Vader's body on that pyre. I think, oh yeah, how's that helmet get to Kylo Ren? Maybe Luke takes it. Kylo Ren steals it from Luke when he turns.
Why did he put the helmet back on him? That was my question. When he burned him, he had taken the helmet off and he was suddenly human again. Why didn't he burn him like that? Why did he put the helmet back on before he burned him? Seems wrong somehow.
Yeah, it does seem weird. I guess because, you know, he's destroying Vader, the image, as well as...
I guess. But it's, yeah, I mean...
Yes, I mean, the question is, you know, how does that helmet get to Kylo Ren?
Well, I mean, how, you know, I hate you. Give my lightsaber to my son when he's old enough.
Yes.
You know, that scene of Luke burning Vader's body was shot later in post-production at Skywalker Ranch because Lucas was concerned that it wouldn't be clear that Vader was really dead without that scene. Originally, Luke leaves Vader on the Death Star, and we never actually see him dragging Vader up onto his ship or anything. And if you look at that shot, Mark Hamill looks a little different. It was obviously later, and you know, it's a little corner of the woods that passes for Endor, but that was filmed after the main shoot.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I think, just as an actor, watching Mark Hamill figure out how to take the helmet off is some of the best acting I've ever seen. He's just so good. Watch those 15 seconds, and he's really good.
No, I agree. I know what you're talking about.
He's looking around trying to...
Yeah, how do I work this shit? Oh, there you go. Like, yeah.
Yeah, I was very scared when they took...
When you were a kid?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, this stuff was really scary when I was a kid. That was scary, and the whole... this whole sequence with Palpatine and Luke and Vader.
I was scared.
I remember very vividly, like, not being able to look at the screen when Luke is hiding and Vader is like, "You cannot hide forever, Luke." That was terrifying.
What did you think Vader was going to do to you?
To me?
Yeah, I mean, why were you afraid of him?
I don't know. I just think, you know, Vader was a scary villain, and I was 6 years old, and something about hiding and the like Luke's position there. You're hiding, you're okay right now. You just have this tiny little island of okayness, but this very scary, powerful thing that wants to kill you is like right over there. All he has to do is look down, and there you are. I think that is probably a common childhood feeling.
Hello, Cooper.
See, Mr. C.
What's up?
See, Mr. C.
What's up? So I watched some commercials for Return of the Jedi.
I saw that you posted those.
Toy commercials.
I didn't have a chance to watch them.
Some of them were bizarre. And also there was one for the Yoda action figure that had strangely suggestive language. I don't remember exactly what it is, but to take a look at the Yoda toy commercial and see what you think. But it just reminded me of just how utterly stupid commercials used to be.
They still...
I mean,
yeah.
I hate to say it, but the commercials are so much more effective these days.
A lot more sophisticated.
I don't know. When I was a kid, like, all those commercials made me really, really want to be those other kids because they got to play in their sandbox with these toys, you know, and they got to, like going to frickin' McDonald's. I really thought there was a clown there that was going to, like, hang out with me, but, you know, like, those commercials really...
But if there was, you really shouldn't go with him.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Hey,
but
buddy.
I don't know. I think they were very effective at the time. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. We're not watching toys for commercials for toys anymore. So how do we know?
You're not? I am. Never stopped.
Are you watching like Cartoon Network? Do you still watch the TV?
No, I don't actually see. I see very few ads at all these days, and when I do, I find them baffling.
You're welcome.
Pardon me, guys.
Oh, your cat's cute. Marc-Anthony's kissing his cat. Come back, Noah.
I'll be right there. I really will. Ah, yes. I thought it was here.
Well, while you're looking for that, here's my Return of the Jedi lunchbox that I used to take to.
Noah's making too much noise. We can't see your thing.
Noah, what are you doing?
All right. Oh, nice. Hey, that's nice.
This is from Bishop Leibold grade school. I would take this to.
I might have had that. That looks so familiar.
Did it come with a thermos?
It did come with a thermos, which I don't think is in here right now. I don't know if I still have the thermos or not.
I always wanted a thermos.
On that side. And then the special surprise on the bottom is, oh, there we go, Jabba the Hutt.
Very nice.
All right, so I lived in Memphis. I lived in Marietta, and I moved to Memphis, and I watched this in Memphis because we moved to Memphis in August of 1984. My mother just texted me. So that was all the way back to the beginning. I saw this when I lived in Arkansas.
The circle is now complete.
Here's what I was looking for. This is my original Palpatine.
Oh, nice.
The 1984 is the year on his leg.
Now, that was the one that you couldn't initially get in the store. You could order the Emperor, I think, if you had proof of purchase from a certain number of figures or something.
That rings a bell.
Yeah.
You couldn't order the Emperor, or you couldn't buy the Emperor?
You couldn't originally get him in the store. You could only get him by sending away for him.
Yeah, that's right. And it's also an interesting figure because he's like wearing his cloak, but he walks. He has legs.
He has pantaloons if
wearing
you push him a certain way.
He's wearing
a pantsuit.
A pantsuit, yeah.
He's wearing a Katharine Hepburn style pantsuit.
But I remember seeing that figure. I think a friend of mine got it through the mail, and I really didn't know who the Emperor was. And I think my friend was even calling him the Emperor, because that's what he thought he was actually. Because of how paper said it. Yeah.
It's a really cheap figure looking at it, one color plastic, one color paint. Really not much to it.
It's kind of tangentially related. I have the Dulok. These were Endor creatures from the Ewoks cartoon.
Oh.
This is called a Dulok.
Wow.
And I also have, the Shuttle Tidarium.
Wow, that's nice. Look at that.
Whoa, it's quite the dust collector. But it has a little inside thing. It's kind of like the AT-AT of Return of the Jedi.
Uh-huh.
As far as toys go.
The Ewok Village also is a very strong contender.
Can I ask you a question, Marc-Anthony?
May.
Or the gatekeeper?
Yeah, go ahead, here's my Ewok Village.
Yeah, there it is.
Ooh, yes. Why does the Millennium Falcon look so small when it's around the other ships, but it seems so big when it's in the hangar? Do you find that to be the case?
It's a simple matter of scale, Sisk. Those other ships are much larger than the Falcon, which is only a medium-sized light freighter. Those other ships being corvettes or blockade runners or cruisers are, of course, going to be larger. Even the frigates are going to be larger than a light freighter.
I know that. I mean the other ships that the little fighters that the Alliance is flying and stuff.
Such as X-Wings and A-Wings and Y-Wings and B-Wings.
Yes.
And H-Wings.
Hot Wings and Buffalo Wings.
The Millennium Falcon is only slightly larger than those ships.
Okay.
It has a cockpit. It has a cargo hold. It has living quarters and a head or two. That's all.
Okay.
Is the line? Was this in Empire or Jedi when 3PO remarks about the Millennium Falcon having a?
That would be in the Empire Strikes Back when C-3PO says, "Your ship has the most no, wait, what is it? Fuck, I forgot.
Something accent.
No. Oh, I don't know why your ship learned to communicate, but it has the most peculiar dialect. That's
dialect.
What it did.
Yeah, we know now.
And we know that that's L3, who, by the way, was named after people online that are especially proficient at their trade, LEET, L-E-E-T, or LEE7. That's where she gets her name.
Don't take that hat off yet.
Oh, Jesus, okay.
Because we're going back to this Millennium Falcon thing.
Yes.
So he's a smuggler, and later he puts all these monsters, these huge fucking monsters, in the ship. You're going to tell me you could put one of those huge fucking things inside an X-Wing?
No, you could not put one of those things in an X-Wing. That's why you would put it in a ship larger than the Falcon, which is what he does in The Force Awakens. Those creatures are not in the Falcon. They're in the larger ship into which the Falcon was taken.
Okay. That clears up a lot of things for me.
Of course.
A lot of things. Because I was like, how did he get them loaded onto this? But he walks in and he goes, Chewie, we're home. Like,
yeah, but then don't they go outside? They go outside the Falcon, right?
He doesn't question anything. It's just like, oh, here's my ship. It's been gone for a really long time.
We don't know how long, do we?
I mean, Rey would have had to be born and grow up. So how did the ship get there? Oh, anyway,
It was stolen, a few times.
Discussion for another time.
Yeah, well, we'll then, I guess not the next episode, but the episode after next, we'll be watching Force Awakens, so we can dig into that. Right?
We can dig into that.
Well, is there anything else we should cover that we've not covered about Return of the Bloody Jedi?
Well, let's talk about Return of the Jedi versus Revenge of the Jedi.
Oh, I remember the original title. When I was a little kid, I was just so excited about the next Star Wars movie. I remember seeing at the movie theater that we went to a cardboard stand-up. It was a Darth Vader figure, giant cardboard Darth Vader, very red lighting on him. And underneath in red, in what became the familiar Return of the Jedi logo, it said Revenge of the Jedi.
And then apparently Lucas decided that the Jedi don't get revenge and changed it to Return of the Jedi.
Yeah, and he then later made a movie called Revenge of the Sith, which
they
more
do
appropriate.
Revenge, as it turns out.
Yes.
That is kind of their thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just kind of a fun thing. I mean, although if we're gonna get back to basics, the real title is Blue Harvest.
Blue Harvest, horror beyond imagination.
Right.
And I haven't seen the movies, but I've seen the boxes, that are like, I just lost what I was going to say. It was really funny, though. But I had to wait for you to finish, and now I'm lost. It was going to be some reference to porn. Jedi porn.
Blue Harvest?
Yeah.
Did you get a lot of porn? Yeah, you could say it was a real Blue Harvest.
I mean, I guess they could be talking about
No, I mean, like, what would they call a porn? I'm sure there were some porn based on Star Wars. Is it like Star Whores?
I wouldn't know.
I don't know either, but
I
you're
would
right. Obviously, of course, you're correct.
And Return of the Jedi, or something. It would be.
There's probably a lot of Princess Leia.
Yeah, the Emperor.
There even was on Saturday Night Live. She was called Princess Leia.
Letitch now.
What?
Letitch now. Sean Connery on Jeopardy.
Oh.
Anyway.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is not only a Return of the Jedi, but this is also our last conversation devoted to an original trilogy film. So closing thoughts on the original trilogy would not be out of line.
It's really good.
It's really good.
I would like to watch it again all in one day because we've really been focusing on, one movie at a time for like 2 weeks and then going to the next movie. But I got very bored at certain parts, and those are the parts I guess I realized I didn't think were very good. Like I just realized I kept looking away when Leia was first meeting the Ewok. Is that Wicket?
Mm-hmm.
When she was, we watched it 3 times, and I realized every time I started doing something else and I missed it, and I thought that's just really, I gotta say that I don't like that part, or it's just
that's one of my favorite parts. I look forward to that scene. And
I kind of like that
too.
too.
I remember him seeing in the theater and just loving.
I like Leia and Wicket, but I do get bored with the flying, zooming through the trees on speeder bikes. That's another example, like the trench run, like the pod race. It's just like, all right, 2 minutes of that would have been plenty for me, but it's fine.
The trench run is totally different between those two.
I every time I see Return of the Jedi, I feel kind of like, oh, we get to Endor much sooner than I expect to, and then we're much earlier in the movie than I think we are. Like in my mind, Endor is kind of the third act of the movie, and that's when we get to tying things up. But but we get to Endor, and we have a lot to go still.
Yes, and you know the whole end of the Endor thing, the running and all that. It reminds me of Rogue One when they're trying to get to the tower, whatever.
To be able to send the transmission.
In this door, and they're trying to get there, and it's kind of reminiscent. Rogue One,
that's true.
That, I guess.
I think Rogue One had a lot of nods to all of the Star Wars movies. It was mostly to A New Hope, but there is definitely some Empire and Return of the Jedi in there, especially in that last battle scene.
Right.
But I mean, as a trilogy overall, I mean, I think there's no denying that the footprint of these movies is on the consciousness of almost everyone working in film today. So many people went into movies just because they became fascinated with movies because of these three movies.
Yeah. At this point, it's so big. There's a lot of different things that we have to call Star Wars. Star Wars is this vast sort of brand name that encompasses vast numbers of, works in all different mediums or media. And, it is this epic kind of force within the zeitgeist. But at its most basic level, like when I watch the original trilogy, I sort of think, oh, well, this kind of is Star Wars more than anything else is. This is the original. This is the nut of the idea. And, like Vader, watching Vader in these three movies, I always think, or I thought this last time around, anytime we evaluate a subsequent appearance of Vader, and talk about how Vader-like he is or how convinced we are, we're comparing it to Vader's appearance in these three films. This is the authority on everything.
See, I don't know. I think I might have the opposite view of I kind of like the things that have jumped off from this in reference to it more than I like these themselves. And, I feel like Vader is never more Vader in a movie than in Rogue One. I feel like that's the most Vader we have seen in a Star Wars film.
I kind of agree with that, but I think the reason it feels that way is because that Vader so convincingly reminds us of the Vader we met in A New Hope. I mean, he is notably a little more badass in that scene coming down the hallway, but the scene affords him the opportunity to do
I guess
that.
I feel like these things that living in our own imaginations is where they're the most powerful, and I feel like that Vader is what so many people have imagined him to be. And like all of the stuff with Vader in some of the other animated series and some of the comic books and books just make the Vader in this original trilogy seem a little bland.
He's a little bland. I mean, he doesn't have a whole lot to do.
he walks around, he says things.
Breathing. His breathing is the most powerful thing he does, when he's just sitting there breathing.
But that's exactly it. I mean, that's what makes him such a scary presence. He doesn't put there's not a lot to chew on and think about. He is simply this dark, breathing presence. And, I think this is exactly why he's a great movie villain. You don't get a whole lot of him. And you get very little mustache twirling, scenery chewing from Vader.
I would love it if there was a cut where Vader had a mustache to twirl.
Or he didn't, but he just still made the motion.
It's on Vader.
Like he doesn't have a mustache, but he just does this because that's what he thinks.
Or you could toggle through options. Maybe one time he'd have a cigar.
Because he always goes, no! I mean, he could only do that if he, had seen some movies. But yes, Vader does seem bland. But it's one of those cases of the more you know about the monster, the less scary it is in movies.
I never found Vader scary. He wasn't. I grew up in Ohio. How could that be scary?
In New England, Vader was very scary. Oh, were we having neighbor?
Is the neighbor?
What about Hayden Christensen replacing Sebastian Shaw in the Force Ghost tableau at the very end? How do you guys feel about that?
Well, everybody's going to explain it and say because he was Anakin and, Anakin was the Jedi and as he got older, he was Vader. But if we're going to say that, then, he was redeemed when he was old. So so I don't know. I think he should not have been Hayden Christensen, but we know how I feel about that little sprightly man.
I would like it if all three of them were Hayden Christensen.
I'd love to see him as Yoda.
Yeah. I think that's the way it really should be, and hopefully one day will be.
Well, of course, the sand is everywhere it gets.
George Lucas, he keeps improving upon it, and eventually it's going to be Hayden Christensen.
I just want him to be on his deathbed and just, change. Just Jabba the Hutt is now
Hayden Christensen.
Charo performing everything backward.
No, we're going to have Hayden Christensen face on every single person,
mm-hmm.
including Jabba.
Attack of the Clones.
Mm-hmm.
Attack of the Hayden Christensen clones. I think there's no right answer here, because I like the idea that Anakin should be part of that tableau at the end. Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Yoda, urging Luke on from the Jedi afterlife. That's great. But it always seemed a little weird when it was Sebastian Shaw as this kind of I'm okay version of Anakin. It was like, who is that? Oh, I guess that's supposed to be Anakin. All right.
Yeah, it didn't quite. I guess
that never quite worked.
When Hayden gets to be 60, he'll refilm that scene, and say,
"Oh, that would actually
your sister, you were right." And then a 60-year-old Hayden Christensen will be filmed.
Well, they could have made that happen digitally, make an older Anakin, because the way it is now, I understand why it was done, and it doesn't upset me the way it upsets some people. But it's a little strange that Obi-Wan is it's Alec Guinness and Hayden Christensen,
Yeah, if anything, Obi-Wan should be going, what the fuck?
Who is this young man?
Can't I be young and sexy again too? That's the first Obi-Wan voice ever.
If he's going to look like that, I'd like to be Ewan McGregor.
Please be Ewan McGregor again.
I have a very serious question.
I've said to myself on no small amount of occasions.
You just said that they were going to wait until Hayden Christensen was 60, and then they were going to refilm the end scenes.
Uh-huh.
Hayden Christensen's still going to be acting when he's 60? That's really my question.
Has Hayden Christensen ever been acting?
Oh, that's I like that answer. I don't want him to keep acting. Actually, has he been in anything besides the Bob Dylan thing?
Yes. He was in something that was well regarded. I can't remember what now, but he was actually well reviewed in another role in something. And he is there is at least a strong possibility that he is in The Rise of Skywalker.
I'd be kind of surprised if he wasn't.
There's I guess that's not confirmed, but there's been much suggestion of that. And, he and Ian McDiarmid were doing some convention panels and things, and then Disney pulled the plug. Don't let that guy talk.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I do think we'll see him. Oh, and also there have sometime in the past week a promotional image for Rise of Skywalker surfaced, and it's Kylo Ren. It's kind of a looking up at Kylo Ren, and he's very evil and commanding, and this kind of shadowy silhouette of Darth Vader is in his cloak. So we are definitely in this episode that purports to wrap up the whole saga, we're definitely going to get some Anakin, Vader, Palpatine.
Very clearly, Anakin has to come back so that he can finally bring balance to the Force.
But what does that mean, really?
The Force has not been informed on what its balance is.
Sir, you have never taken a pause that long, as far as I know.
I think we're going to have to think about this balance thing. Because
I think it's a thing. I really do, because I don't think it's ever been quite explained. And if episode 9 is going to seriously tie the whole saga together, that's a thing that we could use some comment on.
Only a Sith deals in absolutes, which means we can't say good, we can't say bad. We say light and dark, which is kind of the same. They say light and dark, and then they, the evil guys say evil.
Evil.
But
He was a pupil of mine before he turned to evil.
I retired one of the bingos last time, and you've done it like 17 times now. Speaking like Obi-Wan Kenobi, but sounding like George Harrison. Anyway.
And now I'd like to sing Blue Moon of Kentucky.
Just a short version. I don't even know what I was talking about.
Kenobi. We're talking about Kenobi.
Oh, well, yes, but I'm done. I have nothing.
Okay.
Well, Kenobi, what about the Kenobi scene? Yoda, first of all, Yoda's death scene. I forget who, but some critic wrote that Yoda has the most florid death scene since Camille, which is true. It's a very florid death scene. Last time we watched it, Amanda and I both realized we were watching Return of the Jedi. We were talking to each other. We were eating. And then during Yoda's last words, we both realized we were both like...
We both had food in our hand, and we're like...
Just so moved.
And when Vader dies, when Anakin died, I got very sad.
But then after Yoda disappears, just as Kenobi did before him, Luke goes out of Yoda's little hut, and there is Force Ghost Obi-Wan, who is a little defensive about the, the misdirection that he was guilty of in Episode 4. Well, it was true from a certain point of view.
Being an accurate liar. Kenobi clearly doesn't like telling the truth.
Yoda gives Luke a reason, at least. He says, you are not ready for the burden of knowing that Vader was your father. Basically, we were saving that for after you were a full-fledged Jedi and could handle it and could face him. I don't know if I buy that, but at least it's a reason. Obi-Wan's like, well, it was sort of true. What's your problem? Shut up. It's true from a certain point of view.
Mine.
If you're me and you ignore the facts, it's true.
Yeah, from a certain point of view. From a certain point of view, I was wearing a condom. From a certain point of view, I wasn't recording the conversations in my office. From a certain point of view, I didn't ask the Ukraine for dirt on my political opponent.
Well, now Noah shut down the conversation.
So what's next on our docket? What will our next episode be?
Our next episode, which really will be in 2 weeks, I think we're back on our correct schedule now. Hold on just a moment. I'm calling up the
It's me.
beloved website, facesofstone.space.
It's me, and it's...
you can also get there on noahdiamond.com.
I'm trying to tell you...
Oh, it's a TBA theme episode.
I've just been sitting here trying to tell you this. And you've just been talking and talking. It's me, and I don't know what it is yet.
Yeah.
It could be the Dharma of Star Wars. It could also be the timeline of something.
And that will be on
It should all
October
be about
27th.
Mandalorian armor and its various applications in warfare.
Maybe you should host a theme episode sometime.
Fuck no.
I could just sing karaoke.
I'd be up for that.
Take requests. Yeah, make sure you...
All right, so are we
really
at the end for today? Have we?
I guess so. I
think we've
covered Return of the Jedi as well as it could possibly be covered.
No one's done it better before, nor will they since.
Nope.
Well, no one said this today. Keep it in your pants.
God damn.
There are a couple... I always like to give I'm going to retire this, but
right, okay.
It's the random...
I've actually been saying that to myself repeatedly through this entire conversation.
So the lesson is vocalize your thoughts.
I'm going to retire this one.
Baseball, Ray.
What is that? Is that like a weapon that shoots baseball?
Yes.
Solid? Is it? I don't know why anyone would want that kind of thing.
A baseball ray.
Well, hey, anybody who's looking for more information about us or the archive of our past episodes discussing Star Wars, as well as Twin Peaks: The Return. Oh, Robert Forster, rest in peace.
Indeed.
The second Sheriff Truman. We lost him this past week. A late breaking bingo. At facesofstone.space. What's that?
I was asking Amanda if she killed Sheriff Truman.
I never said a word about Sheriff Truman dying.
All right.
Just Diane Carroll and Norma.
Oh, yeah.
All right, then, Noah, plug away. Sorry to interrupt.
Tell us about.
Oh, well, just, at facesofstone.space, you can find all our past episodes as well as our schedule. This Star Wars series that we are now embroiled in will take us to December 22nd, when we will discuss, at long last, episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. On Twitter, we are M_A_Macon. We are president of Sisk, and we are Noah Diamond.
All right, folks, that's
Special
it.
Thanks to Marc-Anthony for hosting this episode.
Anytime. It was
well
fun.
done, sir.
I'm sorry that my obnoxious friend came along.
I like that guy.
Very informative.
That's good. I'm glad somebody does. We'll see you next time on
Faces of Stone.
How do I end the recording? I'm still recording because I don't know how to stop it.